All right, take a moment to pause the video and go through the following statements to determine which of the 5 can be represented by the inequality x is greater than 7. Jack's cat weighs more than 7 pounds. This statement is true. 7 less than a number. 7 less than a number would be represented by n minus 7. The temperature increased by 7 degrees. That would be represented by t plus 7 or some variable plus 7. Ashley's broad jump exceeded 7 feet. So we're not quite sure how much, but we just know that it is greater than 7. The value of a number substituted for x is larger than 7. So 1, 4, and 5 are all equivalent to x is greater than 7. Solutions of inequalities can be represented on number lines. The words, symbols, and context used in the inequality determine the endpoint and the direction of the ray. A class must raise at least $250 to go on a field trip. They have already raised $75. Write an inequality that represents how much money they have left to raise and graph it on a number line. Our hint here is the word at least. So M plus 75, so the money they have, plus the $75 they've already raised has to be greater than or equal to $250. Using addition inverse, we would subtract 75 from both sides such that the money we need needs to be greater than or equal to $175. Notice on our number line at 175, our dot is enclosed or it's circled and it's filled in because it's greater than or equal to. So anytime we have the equal to piece of our inequality, it needs to be a closed dot. Then we need to determine which way our arrow needs to go. I need values that are bigger than 175. So our arrow needs to go to the right-hand side. There are fewer than 200 days until Kevin's birthday. Our hint here is fewer than. So letting X represent Kevin's birthday, his birthday is less than 200 days. On our number line here, notice that 200 is an open circle because it does not have the equal to portion underneath the inequality. We need numbers that are smaller than 200, which means our arrow needs to point to the left-hand side. The words and symbols used in the inequality determine the endpoint and the direction of the ray. Inequalities have many solutions, and those solutions can be represented on a number line. Pete's Pizza and Pasta Shop makes more than 4 pizzas an hour, which graph represents the number of pizzas that can be made in 3 hours. Pause the video, make your selection. Since they can make more than or greater than 4 pizzas in 1 hour, in 3 hours they can do 3 times as much. So they can do 12 pizzas in 3 hours, but we want more than, so numbers that are greater than, which is why the arrow moves to the right. We can represent the relationship between 2 quantities with an equation, and we also can represent the same relationship using a graph. Look at the perimeter of a square and taking a look at its equation. The perimeter, knowing a square that all 4 sides are equal, a square with 1 would be 4 times 1, or 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. So 4. A square with a 2-unit piece on one side would be 4 times 2, so 8. We then can generalize that it doesn't matter what the length of one of our sides is. When we multiply it by 4, that will give us the perimeter. So the perimeter is 4 times S. Looking at the perimeter of the square here, let's fill in the blanks so that we can graph our points. So if I plug in 1 for S, 4 times 1 is 4. If we plug in 2 for S, 4 times 2 is 8. We plug in 4, 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 7 is 28. 4 times 11 is 44. We then can go ahead and fill in the points on our line. Plotting the points, you can see that as our side gets larger, thus does the perimeter get larger as well. Try this one, y equals 5x. Pause the video, fill in the blanks, and graph. Notice that we're counting by fives, or they're all divisible by 5 here. Further, I didn't label my graph, but maybe you did. I labeled down below here by ones, but I skip counted by 5 all the way up. So this represents 5, 10, 15, 30, and 45. Go ahead and try this one. Y equals 1/3 of x. Fill in the blanks and graph our result. Here we have a few fractions as we multiply, but then they start to become whole numbers, which is okay. Notice that everything that we have done thus far has been a nice straight line. Even though it's a little early in 6th grade, we are building relationships with linear lines. The relationship between two quantities that change together can be shown with an equation in a graph using variables to represent two quantities. Let's fill in the table. We have Indian rupees and US dollars. So we have some Indian rupees and US dollars together with missing pieces. So let's start with that top row. I have 448 rupees. How many US dollars is that? Well, what we can do is divide by 7 to get 1 US dollar to by itself. Therefore, if we did 448 divided by 7, 64 rupees would equal 1 US dollar. So if I have 20 US dollars, multiply that by 64, we get 1,280 rupees. Similarly, to go backwards, I know that if I have 1,600 rupees and I were to divide that by 64, we would get 25 US dollars. Relationships between variables can be used to find missing values in a data set. Write an equation that coincides with the data provided. So when I look at the points on the plane here, the number of square feet is along the bottom, the cost of the deck is along the left. The point, if I have 120 square feet, that cost is equal to $2,160. Well, how do I go from that to 1 square foot? What would the cost be? So I divide them by 120, and in both cases, we get the same cost per square foot. So then we can use that information to fill in our table. So this shows us that 1 square foot costs $18. So the cost is 18 times the square footage that we have. Where C represents the cost of the deck and S equals the number of square feet. So if we have 156 square feet, what will the cost of this be? So we can take $18 times 156. So it would cost us $2,808. Now if we go backwards, the cost is $1,800 equals 18 times the square foot. Using our inverse properties, 1,800 divided by 18 would be 100 square feet. Your homework. Print the homework file included in the practice problems homework Dropbox. Complete the problems as outlined within the homework pages. scan and upload your documents back into the Practice Problems Dropbox.